All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Billy Chow, and I'll be your moderator for this session. A few quick announcements before we begin. First, this session will be recorded and made available after the conference on the Women Transforming Technology website. Please submit any questions throughout the session in the Q&A, and we will try to get through as many as possible in the last 10 minutes or so. Please utilize the chat functionality to socialize with your fellow participants. And last but not least, there will be a couple of poll questions throughout the presentation, and they can be accessed on the right-hand side. And I see some of you have already answered them. With that, I'll hand it over to Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 6th Annual Women Transforming Technology Conference. Thank you so much for joining my session. We're going to talk today about how to get your resume noticed and land that interview. A quick introduction about me. My name is Melissa Crijns. I have been a recruiter for over 20 years, almost entirely in the tech industry. I currently work for ZUORA, a subscription management software company, and I am principal lead recruiter for our product team. And ZUORA is a very, very proud sponsor of this event. When Billy reached out to ask me if I wanted to present at this conference, I was so honored. And as I learned more about the conference, its history, and the theme this year, resilience, I decided this is definitely an event I want to be involved in. Looking back over this last year, we've all had to be incredibly resilient. Many people have lost their jobs or have had to get used to working in an entirely new way. It is estimated that nearly 3 million US women have dropped out of the labor force in the last year, and many have delayed looking for a new role up until recently. Luckily, most of us are seeing a substantial increase in the number of job opportunities. So how do we stand out and get noticed? Let's start with a quick poll question. As Billy mentioned, you should be able to see the poll questions to the right side of your screen. So the first one is, how often are you invited for an interview after you've applied to a job you're well qualified for? If everybody can quickly submit their answer, that would be great. And then I'll let Billy read out the results.
All right, I see about 194 responses so far. We'll just give it a couple of more seconds. All right. So about 39% of you have said that you only get a response between 0 to 25% of the time.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Now let's talk a little bit about the truth about recruitment technology. Did you know that up to 75% of all applications are never looked at? You heard that right. Of all the applications that come in through a company website, LinkedIn, all the other job boards out there, 75% are never even looked at. And did you know that there are 20 million open positions on LinkedIn right now? And there are over 100 million job applications each month via LinkedIn alone. Why is this? The truth, the technology that was created to solve the recruitment problem has actually created an entirely new problem. By making it easier for candidates to apply, it's actually lowered an applicant's chance of getting noticed. Across all industries, talent acquisition and recruitment teams are struggling to keep up reviewing job applications. Just to give you an idea, I currently have over 20 job openings that I'm responsible for. I receive hundreds of applications each week. Unfortunately, there are just not enough hours in the day to review all of them. And for the resumes that we recruiters do review, we spend on average less than 10 seconds on each one. And so today I'd like to give you some tips on some things you can do to get your resume noticed to improve your chances of getting an interview. Let's start with communication and follow-up. First off, I recommend that you always apply for the role first so that your resume is in the company's ATS or applicant tracking system. This makes it easy for the recruiter to find your information and to set up an interview. After you've applied, try to figure out who the recruiter or business leader is and reach out to them directly. Most of the time, a job posting will list a team or department or even the title that the position reports to. LinkedIn is a great place to do company research. If you go to the company's page on LinkedIn and select people, you can search for employees by job title. Almost every company has a LinkedIn page, so definitely do this. There are also websites such as rocketreach.co and hunter.io that can help you find the email of specific people within an organization so you can send your resume and cover letter directly to them. Both have free accounts where you can get a certain amount of free contacts per month. And there are multiple sites that offer this same service. Email is definitely the best method of reaching out to follow up. I would not recommend cold calling. You'd be surprised how often people connect with me on LinkedIn, get my contact information, and then call me. Catching a recruiter or a business leader off guard and expecting them to shift gears at a moment's notice can really do more harm than good. So when you email, send a short message, including the position you've applied for and why you think you're a great fit. Mention an accomplishment you've had in a similar role. Make sure you also include why you are interested in the company. So often people send generic emails and I'm left wondering how many other recruiters got the exact same mail. So tailor your communication. And if you don't hear back, try one more time a few days later. Don't worry, persistence often pays off. I also recommend that you don't apply to multiple jobs at the same company all at once or apply for the same position multiple times. It's not a good look. In fact, it creates the perception that you don't know what you're looking for or that you may not be qualified for any of the roles. And also, don't mail the same person more than 2 times. If you can't figure out the right contact person, most companies have a general career email on the career page of their website. You may have to scroll all the way down to find it, but it's usually there. Those emails typically get routed to an admin who then forwards to the entire recruitment team. It's a great way to get your resume in front of the entire team. So definitely go for it. So to recap, apply first, use the job description in LinkedIn to determine the right point of contact, find their contact details. If you don't hear back, follow up a few days later. Make sure your email is specific to the role and company. Do not send a generic email and be persistent. If you really want to work for a certain company, don't give up after just one try. Which leads me to my next tip. Make sure you leverage your connections and network. Ask for LinkedIn introductions. Referrals have a 50% likelihood of getting an interview. Non-referrals only have a 3% likelihood. So getting someone at the company to introduce you is a definite advantage. Companies often give a referral bonus to employees that introduce candidates that are eventually hired. So usually folks are happy to make an introduction. In fact, we ask our colleagues to share job openings with their network and get involved with the recruitment process to help build the company. So don't be afraid to ask for introductions. I also highly recommend that you attend company events. These days, there are so many virtual events and online webinars, and often they're for free. If you attend one of these events and send an email to a recruiter or business leader mentioning that you attended, I can almost guarantee they will take the time to open your resume and look at it. It's just another way to get noticed, and I see candidates doing it more and more these days. Candidates are also engaging through social media. Most companies post their latest news, blogs, interviews. So get involved in the conversation through social media and network that way. It's just another way to set yourself apart and show your interest. Now let's do another poll question because I want to talk about resume format next. What is your biggest concern when it comes to resume formatting? I'll give you a minute to submit your answer, and then Billy can read the results again.
You guys are great. We have like 274 responses already. So yeah, 41% of people said they have sort of biggest concerns around focus on achievements versus duties.
Yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about this. Going back to what I said earlier, I spend about 10 seconds looking at a resume. My advice is to keep it stupid, simple, KISS. Most of the time, the recruiter has never worked in that position, and they're the first ones that review your resume. Make sure your resume is easily understood. I recommend that you write your resume in chronological order. This is all going to sound very obvious, but you would not believe the different styles and formats that we recruiters see every day. So write it in chronological order, starting with the most recent position on top, working your way down. Make sure you include your job title, of course, company name, dates of employment. Focus on your main achievements rather than listing out all your job duties. This is huge. You want to keep it to 2 pages maximum would be my advice, knowing that recruiters are only spending about 10 seconds on your resume. So just focus on the top 2 or 3 achievements you've had in each role. Definitely get rid of all the fluff that is not relevant to the position. Try to use numbers and hard data when you can. For example, if you're applying for a sales position, instead of saying you're a top seller, if you use words like closed more than 1 million in sales or increased sales by 20%, that is going to have so much more impact. Spend the extra time to tailor your resume specifically for the role. Make sure that you hit all the major keywords and qualifications so that the recruiter can quickly see that you have the required skill set. Job seekers often complain about not getting their resume past the applicant tracking system. The reason is because the ATS looks for specific keywords that are in the job description. If you don't include them, your resume may not be identified as a match. Another tip is make sure you include on your resume a hyperlink to your LinkedIn profile. I always look for a candidate's LinkedIn profile. Honestly, because it's often easier to read than resume. I want to see if I have shared connections with that person, if the candidate has recommendations. I highly, highly advise you to ask for recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. I read them all the time. And make sure your resume matches your LinkedIn profile. You'd be surprised how many don't. And that often creates confusion and doubt when the dates of employment are different, or the job titles are different, or there's maybe a big gap on your LinkedIn profile, but not on your resume. So just make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn profile are consistent. Make sure this sounds so obvious, but make sure your resume does not have spelling mistakes. I will not introduce a resume to a hiring manager that has obvious mistakes. So make sure you also ask someone else to look over it. Also, my advice, and I see it more and more today, is folks that are putting their photos on their resume. I believe that it actually hurts your chances of getting the job if you're applying for a role in the United States. I'm not sure about other countries. I know I used to live and work and recruit in the Netherlands, and it was very common there. But in the US, the reason is pretty simple. We have very strict anti-discrimination and labor laws. Companies must be able to prove that their hiring processes are free from any profiling based on race, gender, age, appearance, etc. So out of precaution, we really prefer not to see candidate photos on resumes. If someone really wants to see your photo, they can look on LinkedIn. Also, when you apply via LinkedIn, make sure you always attach your resume. If you don't, LinkedIn will automatically convert your LinkedIn profile to a text file. It's not pretty to look at, and I don't think it leaves a great impression. So when the recruiter opens up your application in their applicant tracking system, instead of seeing a beautifully formatted 2-page resume, they're seeing what just looks like one page of just text. I'd like to talk next about the difference between women and men when it comes to applying for jobs. LinkedIn published a Gender Insights report in 2019. They found that while both men and women put in the same amount of time researching job opportunities and employers, women are significantly more selective or hesitant when applying. Research shows that in order to apply for a job, women feel they need to meet 100% of the criteria, while men usually apply after meeting about 60%. Women tend to screen themselves out and end up applying to 20% fewer jobs than men. Also, women are more hesitant to ask for a referral than men. If women only apply when they feel extremely qualified, this could also indicate they are not pursuing stretch opportunities. My advice to women is to go for it. Don't feel like you need to be a 100% match. Recruiters and hiring managers are often looking for candidates that will be able to stretch and grow, not someone who will get bored and leave after a year. So if you're a close fit, say 75%, I encourage you to go ahead and apply and always ask for that referral. Lastly, I want to talk about staying positive throughout the process. I know it can be incredibly frustrating when you don't hear back from a company or a recruiter, but don't give up. Try the different methods that I've discussed. It's okay to reach out again to show your interest. Recruiters are managing anywhere between 10 and 20, sometimes more job openings at any given time. So patience and persistence is important. And if you don't get the interview this time, stay resilient. Resilient people are defined as optimistic, pragmatic, adaptable. They demonstrate self-compassion, are socially connected, autonomous, and have a realistic sense of self. Applying for a new job is challenging. Recognize it and accept it for what it is. Don't overthink things and always be open to new opportunities. So with all that, I'd like to now open it up to your questions.
Awesome. We got a number of really great questions come in. We have about 5 minutes as a heads up, Melissa.
Okay.
So one of the questions that we got was around relaunching careers. So someone has had several career breaks. So how do you structure your resume or even in the interview to get noticed? What's your advice there?
So I would say we see it all the time that people change their careers throughout their career journey. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I do think that when there are significant gaps, say more than 3 months, it might be a good idea. And what I do see often is where people will actually put a little line in their resume that they were in the process of searching for a position. And obviously during economically difficult times like last year, it can take a long time to find a new position. or if you just take a break and you travel or whatever. So I would explain what the career break is, but in terms of transitioning and focusing on different careers, you can explain that during the interview because I am sure you'll be asked.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. Got a couple of questions that were sort of similar in vein. So either as a young graduate or someone who's changing their careers, what are some of the things that they can do to sort of structure their resume in the right way to make sure that they're highlighting the right skills or qualifications or experiences? So what's your general advice of going into a job where you don't necessarily have, one-to-one experience?
Right. I think especially for young graduates, it's completely normal to not have that work experience already. I would absolutely advise that you do include your internships and any jobs that you had even through high school and college I've even seen people that put McDonald's on their resume, and I think it's actually quite sweet, especially if you just have a couple of years of work experience. People that work at McDonald's get a tremendous amount of customer service experience. So don't shy away from adding any experience that you had. I would also make sure that you include, of course, any associations that you belong to that could be relevant to any role, and just add any kind of extracurricular activities as well. Sports is a great way to show teamwork, for example. So that would be my advice there.
Awesome. How about for someone who's switching careers? So they've had a career in X and now want to go to Y. What is your advice on the difference in approach there?
Yeah, I think kind of similar to what I said in the first question is it's fine for you to switch careers. I think that's probably best left during a first interview in terms of explaining, why you decided to switch careers. And certainly again, if there's that gap in employment, you can explain on your resume, but also during that first conversation. I hope that helps.
Yeah. All right. I think we'll take one question and then be respectful of people's times. So I have 20 plus years of experience and my resume is over 2 pages. Any tips on how to shorten this?
Yeah, so I see that all the time, and I see some resumes that are 5 or 6 pages long. My advice is to really focus on the last 10 years of experience on those 2 pages. And then at the bottom of the second page, you can list out the dates, the company, and the title just on one line. And you can, of course, touch on that experience because people like me that have been working for 25 some odd years, I think that experience that I gained more than 10 years ago was totally relevant. But at the end of the day, you want to keep that resume to a maximum of 2 pages, really. And so just include that, at the second page, the bullet points, the job title, the dates of employment, and then expand on that when you have your interview, especially if it's relevant to the role you're applying for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. We are right on time. I know there were sort of other questions that weren't answered. So I don't know if Melissa, if you wanted to respond to some of those after the fact, but
I would definitely take that.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for your time.